And I never sensed that at any of the events that we had at either side. There, we would do events with both sides of his family who lived near us, so there were a lot more activities with his family and his circle, and that was it's also something to keep in mind, that everything was pretty much on his terms and in his comfort zone. And I was the one that had relocated and was building my life and my circle, and many of that circle was from his circle because he knew people, and I would be invited to things with him, and he was the common denominator a lot of times. But I think there was some level when things started to drag, and there wasn't a real clear explanation for it. There was that self-doubt that, like, well, maybe he's having doubts about me because I don't have the same background. And these are things I maybe said to myself or wondered, but I never got that feeling from his family. I never felt judged or, from my background. But, it just was something you're kind of in the back of your mind when things don't work out like you expect. You're just like, okay, so what's the issue? What is the issue? Is there an issue? Is it me? And so, yeah, that was it. And I was, when I would bring the subject up and tell him how it made me feel and how, just made me feel like, things weren't moving and I didn't understand why. And I just, do you want to be married? Do you want to be with me long term? Like what, let's talk about it. There was he never said anything that intimated he didn't want to be married or didn't believe in monogamy or didn't want children. And, fast forward to after marriage, this was now his mantra. This was his line. I don't believe in monogamy. I don't value marriage. I never wanted to get married. I don't want to be married. I didn't want to marry you. And he would say this often. And then when I'd be like, so you didn't want to marry me, so why don't we get a divorce? Well, I'm saying I didn't want to marry you. I'm not saying we did it, so, let's just figure it out. But any opportunity he had to kind of diminish and shoot darts at something that I really valued and wanted, which was marriage, and not just marriage. Like that wasn't like a goal of mine, but there was a certain level of security that comes with marriage, spending time, there's an investment, especially as a woman during my childbearing years, spending half a decade and living in a home that I didn't own, that I had no stake in, that I helped work on. So, renovation oversight and house management stuff, that was all me. He was more of the financial provider, but I made the house a home and cooked and took care of all the chores. And, he did hire a cleaning lady. He didn't think that was something I should be doing because we were both very busy, but I contributed to our household and I, helped support our lives. And I realized that if anything happened to him, say he got injured and he was in the hospital, like I wasn't even legally able to go to like the ICU. And so there were things like that I was concerned about. Like, if anything happened, I wouldn't even be someone that could be invited as family into the hospital or make a decision about the person I loved, who I lived with and, who I saw every day and, had, knew what medication he took. Like, those types of things ran through my head. Like, how do I get security here? And, if anything happened to him and, there was, say he passed away, I was gravely ill, like I could be evicted, from the home because I'm not on the title or the mortgage. So there were a lot of things that came into the concept of marriage. And it wasn't just, I want to be a wife. It was like, I need security. I'm making an investment. I'm taking a risk. I'm going on love, but love doesn't legally protect you in situations. And so that was also something I'd often brought up to him about, it seems like you might be a little bit uncomfortable with the concept of marriage. Would you consider just, we get life insurance policies and we figure out a way to do like a medical proxy so that if something happens to you, I have some type of say over your care, because I am the only person in your life that sees you every day and actually lives with you. And, if something were to happen to you, it gives me a right to remain in our home that we moved into together. So there were just like those types of things that are practical, but they're not the only reason for marriage. I find it curious that after we got married, he started accusing me of not marrying him for love, because I wanted security, and he misconstrued, and all I was doing was saying, well, we didn't have to get married. We could have done this and this. Like I was open to both. And he was like, so you married me for security? I was like, I married you for love and for the legal protections that marriage comes with. Yes. And it was like, I was supposed to be apologetic, or like I was doing something wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I actually, marriage serves a purpose that's supposed to protect your loved ones. Yes. And that's what I wanted. But I also was open to other options outside of marriage if marriage was something you weren't interested in. And I was like, you made the choice for the marriage. And so, again, it was the blame shifting, and, well, you had these ulterior motives and you just wanted to marry me so that you had access to, I don't know what, like, I still don't have access to bank accounts. I don't want them. I have my own bank account. Just things like that, just insinuating there was this like underlying, like, evil motive for why I was pursuing this marriage thing. We call it this marriage thing. And then when he started telling me all these truths about how he felt, he kept calling it this honesty thing. And I was just like, okay, this honesty thing, like a layer of honesty on something, like it was a thing. But it was just, just getting back to this idea of mind reading and the inability to take responsibility for his action and inaction, and blaming me for responding as I should have with direct questions. And, maybe I did pressure him, but I think that's, that's okay. Like, pressure is not necessarily, he started calling it coercion after, but he was like, you were coercing me. And I was like, I wasn't. And he was like, yeah, this marriage was like, this was your attempt to pressure me. And I'm like, no, that's not it. I was like, and maybe I did place pressure on you. And I think it's reasonable, woman of my age and, a man of your age dating and living together to have expectations and to voice that. And I'm not going to apologize for doing that because I did nothing wrong. But there was always this underlying like notion that there was something like that was pressure and that wasn't fair. And I'm like, what isn't fair is that you were cheating on me this whole time and not being honest about your true intentions or who you really were. This has nothing to do with marriage, because if you had been honest, you would have never been in this predicament where you have to be married. And I keep saying I'm okay with divorcing, but you don't seem to hear me with that. You claim that you didn't want to get married whenever I say, well, let's divorce because now you can't imagine your life without me. So the cycle of abuse, right? Of the throwing out these harmful messages and claiming I was so undesirable and unwanted, but then not refusing to let me go or refusing to do the things to move a divorce and separation along, just was torture. Psychological torture, because I was like, I don't know what to do. You're telling me you don't want me. And I'm saying, okay, if you don't want me, let's move forward with, the next steps. In fact, I had hired a divorce attorney 3 weeks into our marriage, just because I was after that first week of counseling and therapy, he made it clear that he was on some like time frame. And so I was like, well, let me just, let me find a lawyer and to see, what I can do here to like just protect my rights, because I'm now working, like my source of income is through my soon-to-be ex-husband. I don't have a place to stay. I might need alimony because if I can't support myself and I have to relocate out of the state because I'm only here for him, like I don't have the resources. I wasn't being paid enough to do that. I mean, it was just it was such an entanglement. I was connected career-wise and network-wise and monetarily and legally to this person who was just treating me like an unwanted, like I was a gnat or like a mosquito buzzing around, and that I was like, and I kept saying, like, if you want me to go, could you please help me with the transition out? Like, I don't have furniture. Like, when I moved in with you, like, I gave my furniture to my relative, and, I didn't relocate to my hometown because you asked me to stay here to work and help with this business. Like, and I just make enough so that I can pay my bills on time. But I don't make enough to, support myself and buy furniture and then like, I still haven't even been able to grieve this because I've just been in this like reactive, like just bracing myself for the next letdown and insult. And, what if I fall apart? Like, is it okay if I have alimony so that if I need it to just take 6 months or 3 months to just stay in my new place and cry on the floor and just process, like I could do that without my life just being further turned upside down and losing everything. So that's where I was. And that's kind of, this was just the torture. There was the financial control and the emotional, like just it was relentless, just the emotional like manipulation and the constant need for me to explain my motives and explain my perspective and explain that I did love him and I would never hurt him and I didn't cheat on him and I was so loyal, and having that loyalty questioned or being told that loyalty wasn't something he valued. So all the positives of what I brought to the table were not things that he actually wanted at this point. He wanted me to be more than I was, which explained why he was so nasty. He wanted me to know how to drive, and I was from a place where people don't drive, and I remember that being an issue in our relationship, and specifically putting it in my vows to him that I would get my license, and everybody giggled. And it was like, I want to get my license, like I want to help, but like that's the last thing on my mind right now. Like, I'm just trying to survive this torture and this cycle of just like confusion that I was thrown into. So that's just a little bit of the mind reading and the resentment and just things that like, no one should have to go through in a loving relationship. It's painful, it's not fair, it's confusing, and it's really it's hard to understand unless you've experienced it. It does a number on your psyche and on your the feelings you have towards that person, and about yourself and about your worth. So I can say my self-esteem has definitely taken a hit. I used to be very secure and confident and self-assured and just, knowing, okay, I know what I bring to the table. I know what I can do, and I'm good enough for anything. And this really, being cheated on and seeing the person that he chose and comparing. And I wasn't doing any major anything. When I first got the text messages, I saw and I looked her up, and I was just blown away that he would be with someone like that. But anyway, it's not about her, it's about him. But that's my my share, a little bit longer than usual, but this was something that I just wanted to express and share. And thanks for letting me share this with you. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good day, and take care.